Central, 42nd Street.
Hi everybody, today's October 3rd, 2019, 4:40 p.m. It is 55 degrees Fahrenheit, 13 degrees Celsius on a rainy day. And today I'm going to take you on a tour of Grand Central Terminal. This Grand Terminal was a result of the railroad tycoon Cornelius Vanderbilt's work. And right now I am at the corner of Vanderbilt Avenue, to whom the street was named after, and East 42nd Street. And this is actually the Vanderbilt Tower that is being built right next to Grand Central Terminal. This is the corner entrance, but I'm going to walk over to the main entrance over there underneath the Pershing Square Viaduct. The Pershing Square Viaduct carries car traffic both ways around Grand Central Terminal and allows traffic to continue onto Park Avenue. This Pershing Square Viaduct was named after the World War I General Pershing. As you can see, it's very, very busy here. In fact, there are around 750,000 people who pass by Grand Central Terminal every day. And before I enter the terminal, I just want to point the camera up at this amazing sculpture right there. It was made by the French sculptor Jules Félix Coutan, and he actually refused to come to the United States to oversee its construction, citing that, "I fear some of your American architecture will distress me." But the sculpture's name is called Transportation. It features three gods: Minerva, the goddess of wisdom; Hercules, the goddess of strength; and Mercury, the god of transportation and commerce. There's also a gigantic Tiffany clock underneath it. It's actually the largest Tiffany clock in the world. And also the number 6 on the bottom opens up into a doorway so that the clock can be maintained. It's also synced to the atomic clock, so it's incredibly accurate. Now I'm going to enter the terminal. This here is the Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis foyer, named after her because she was very, very instrumental in saving Grand Central Terminal from its destruction. You can read up more about her here. She actually contacted the Municipal Art Society of New York after the Landmarks Preservation Act was enacted in order to voice her support for the saving of this terminal. In fact, it was very close to its destruction because in 1965 the Pennsylvania station was demolished. And this would have shared the same fate because the railroad at the time that was operating it, New York Central, which is the precursor to the Grand Central Terminal, who built New York Central was the original railroad that was here, one of Vanderbilt's companies. They are running into financial difficulties just due to the changing society. I mean, you had airfare going on there and traffic with Robert Moses with the invention of the car. So all this made railroads out of style. And it was very common for the railroad companies here to also be involved in real estate, to sell the air rights above their building and to lease out their property to other companies, such as what's happening right here in Vanderbilt Hall, which used to be the main waiting area for the Grand Central Terminal. But now this terminal is owned by the Metropolitan Transit Authority. They also turned this Vanderbilt Hall into a food hall. The chandeliers are really magnificent. The light bulbs are exposed as a testament to the invention of electricity. In fact, this terminal wasn't the first Grand Central station. There were two Grand Centrals before it. One was Grand Central Depot, and that came with its whole set of issues, so that was demolished and rebuilt as Grand Central Station in the 1900. But that also shared the same problems with Grand Central Depot because it was very crowded and polluted, and people needed to cross over train tracks like out in the open in order to get here. So imagine that back in the day. But there were tunnels that were created that allowed trains to loop around south of Grand Central Terminal and allow them to turn around without having to start up again. So that was a major innovation here. And the tunnels were actually very polluted because back then they used steam trains. So the city enacted laws in order to prevent that by saying only electric trains can run through here. Now I'm going to enter the main concourse, which is the main area of Grand Central Terminal. You can immediately see it's so big. Also, I forgot to mention about the use of ramps. The idea of ramps was revolutionary when this terminal was created. Actually, it was they had to be defined. It was actually a Roman principle. And now there's the main concourse. It can get pretty busy here. Let's start with the information booth in the center. This is where people would meet each other when they say, meet me at Grand Central at this four-face clock, which is actually worth millions and millions of dollars. This isn't the only information booth. There's another one on the lower level right below it. In fact, inside the information booth, you can see the door over there, is a spiral staircase, which goes right to the lower level.
Thank you and have a safe day.
And I'm going to look toward the right. Here is a east balcony, and to the left is the west balcony. One of the balconies, I believe the east balcony, wasn't constructed when the terminal was made due to the fact that there was nothing there. But the west balcony was always existing. In fact, I believe they're the only two places in the terminal where there's stairs. Everywhere else there's ramps, which is absolutely incredible. But now you can see there's a lot of activity here, and there's much reason to put both staircases in the design. But you have the Apple store here, which is occupying almost the entire east balcony. It's part of Grand Central Terminal. You can go there and get your iPhone. And also to the side there, on those windows, those are actually office space. So they incorporated use of that in the terminal's design, in the corners. And that those three panes of glass up there, if you look closely, there are walkways. People actually can walk between them and see the terminal from the top, and it connects to all the office buildings up there, which is absolutely incredible. Now I'm going to point my camera up at the ceiling. Immediately I see a pigeon in one of these sculptures, so that's kind of interesting. But you can see, you can see a pigeon flying off from one sculpture to the other. You can see there's a big constellation here of the heavens. But there's a fact here that you probably don't know. It's actually wrong. It's backwards. In fact, it was an astronomy student studying at Columbia University who alerted the painters who designed this constellation at the time, but they already started work on it, and Cornelius Vanderbilt made up the reasoning that they said, well, it's backwards because this is the way that God wants to see it. So it's the way you're going to look at the constellation as if you were God. So I'm going to walk over here to past the west balcony and show you a little bit about the terminal. Actually, let me go over here just for a little bit so I could show you some trains. After all, what's Grand Central Terminal without trains, right? Interesting fact, the time in Grand Central Terminal with all the tracks is inaccurate. it's actually 1 minute behind. The trains depart 1 minute after their scheduled departing time. So if you're in a rush to catch the train, know that you have an extra minute before the trains depart. But there's 3 train services that are served here, all on the Metro North line, the Harlem line, the Hudson line, and I believe the other one is a New Haven line. Yep, New Haven line. And soon, Long Island Railroad may serve here when the East Side Access gets here. Possibly in 2021, that's what the estimates are, 2022. But we'll see what happens with that. Okay, there was someone who didn't want to be recorded and asked me to take their image out of the video, so I'm going to redo this part. But anyway, this is the ticketing area for the Metro North Railroad. It's highly advisable for you to get the train tickets here because they charge you a lot higher price in the on board the train itself. But Grand Central Terminal has 2 levels. There's a main concourse and a dining concourse. There's 44 platforms and 67 tracks on 2 levels. And during rush hour, like now, a train arrives at the terminal every 58 seconds. That's incredible. There's also a hidden power station called the M42 that wasn't revealed until the 1980s. But access to that is kind of confidential and you don't know where it is. This is an annex for the New York Transit Museum. You can go there and get some Grand Central Terminal memorabilia. Over here is the Starbucks coffee store inside Grand Central Terminal. Now I'm going to walk over to the other side to show you the other side of Grand Central Terminal, past the main concourse. So I'm passing by the information booth again. Trying not to get in anyone's picture, although it's kind of hard right here because they're all at angles. This way to the left, the escalator goes to the MetLife building, originally the Pan Am building. That building was actually constructed because the railroad was under a lot of financial distress and they actually authorized a skyscraper to be built in between the street grid. And its largest tenant bore the name, which is Pan Am. It was the largest airline at the time. Well, maybe not the largest, but it was actually very, very well known. So this is the 42nd Street Passage over here, going to the right and left. Here's a peak train for the New Haven line. Everyone's going there. 5 o'clock train. Here's the Gray Bar Passage, which heads towards Lexington Avenue. You can see how Metro North has leased out this space to a lot of establishments, partly due to the major renovations that happened to this terminal. Back in the 60s and 70s, this terminal was in a very, very sad state of distress. There were advertisements all over the place. It was polluted. That room, the main concourse, was all dirty, and had to be redone with actually by forcing all that tar and smoke off. So it was really, really ugly. Very disgusting, but I'm glad this terminal is looking a lot cleaner now and a lot nicer. Here I'm going to go into the Grand Central Market. Grand Central Market is a nice, very, very high upscale supermarket. You get a lot of things here, from spices to different meats and cheeses, and also chocolates and roasts. More cheese to the right. If you're coming here, be sure to bring a lot of money because they do charge for their merchandise. But a lot of their stuff is nice and clean, and I can definitely tell it's high quality. But I'm going to get out of this terminal now and go back, out of this market now and back into the terminal and show you the dining concourse. We got some classical music, not classical, at least sounds like swing music playing. So I'm going to go back into the main concourse and down to the dining concourse, the lower level, which also hosts its own set of trains and platforms. And before I go down there, I want to show you a little fact in the upper right corner there. I doubt you can see it with this GoPro, but there's a dark brick in that corner which is left there purposely to show what the terminal ceiling looked like before the reconstruction and renovation. But now I'm headed down to the dining concourse. This is where all the food is. Shake Shack being one of the vendors. Magnolia Bakery is here as well, but you have food cuisines from all over the world here. Indian, American, Chinese. People come to Grand Central Terminal not just for commuting, but for eating too. You can see there's a wine bar here. Going over here, this is the lower information booth connected to the upper information booth with the interior spiral staircase. East side access is going to come to New York City, Grand Central Terminal, as shown by that mural over there. But I'm just walking through the concourse. This is a Japanese restaurant. Here's a kosher delicatessen. This is Hale and Hardy. They're famous for their soups. Wok Chi, which is a Chinese takeout restaurant. And Eat Pita. Also on either side of the dining concourse is the public restrooms. This is the men's room and women's room. And on the other side it's mirrored the same. And here's some seating area for the dining concourse. Someone's late for their train. I should tell her she has an extra minute to catch the train. That extra minute, by the way, was caused because back in the day, the operators of the gates, there were gates back then, would close the gates a minute before that trains left. But of course the gates were discontinued, but the time remained the same. So I'm going to walk over into the Whispering Gallery. This is the Whispering Gallery, done in Gustavino style with the interlocking tiles. There's no support beams here, which is absolutely incredible. And in front of me is the Oyster Bar. This is the oldest business in Grand Central that's still surviving. It's actually a very, very great restaurant. I highly recommend that if you come here, you can take a look at their menu. Okay, that's me, hi. Also, the reason why this is called the Whispering Gallery is because due to the design of this Gustavino tile, it created the effect or unintended effect, no one really knows, of people whispering into one corner over there and the sound traveling all the way over here. Of course, I don't know if it was always publicized, but I do know it's a very funny thing for people to discover for the first time. And I'm just going to walk back out of Grand Central Terminal. By the way, there's also other businesses inside Grand Central Terminal as well. You can take these elevators to the 4th floor, to the Vanderbilt Tennis Club, and to floor B, which is the Campbell Bar. It's actually a hidden speakeasy. So really cool.
Attention Harlem line customers.
You can just see how busy this terminal is right now. Anyway, this is the end of this video, everyone. If you liked it, be sure to give it a big like, subscribe for some more, and I'll see you all next time. And someone almost lost their money, but thankfully they caught it. This was the entrance that I started at.
Oh yeah.
Catch you all later.